Champions Cup Sunday game. It's just the one with like Scarlets and Stade Francais and Bristol and who else was supposed to be playing? Wasps and Toulouse. All these teams were supposed to be playing, but they're all postponed. So yeah, we're left with Leicester and Connacht. But to be honest, I'm not too disappointed about that being the remaining game because it has a potential to be a pretty entertaining one, almost as entertaining as watching my wife try to keep my kids quiet just outside the door here, because it is a Sunday here in New Zealand, the sun is out and the kids want to play, but she's asked them to be quiet while we talk about this game. How's it looking? Well, both these teams won last week. Connacht got their win over Stade Francais, 36 points to 9. It was a pretty comfortable one at home. They scored a bunch of tries. Scrum looked a bit creaky at times. Remember, they had some last-minute changes and were missing some players for that one. Leicester went to France and beat the leading side in the top 14 in Bordeaux. It was a close one, 16 points to 13, but they did get the job done. So two teams that, after one round of the competition, are actually tracking pretty well. Now, both sides have made a few changes. I look at Leicester's lineup and I notice Genge is missing. Now, I know he's signed on with Bristol for next season, which has not been that well received. I'm not sure if, or obviously by Leicester fans. What are you going to do, right? Your captain's leaving, so nobody's going to be too chuffed about that, especially when seemingly the team's doing really well. But yeah, I'm not sure if he's just being rested or if he's injured, but I notice he is conspicuous in his absence, so there you go. Dolly is still there, Hayes is still there, so the front row is otherwise the same. Wells and Sneeman, second row, George Martin, Tommy Raffel and Jasper Visa are the remaining forwards, so it's still a pretty tidy looking forward pack. Very similar to last week. There's a change at 9 and 10 with Ben Young's back in, but George Ford is out for this week, so it's Freddie Burns who'll get a crack. So there's some kind of big name changes, but it's far from what I would call a second string Leicester side anyway. Kelly and Scott in the midfield. Scott moves from 12 to 13. Salmaki's still there on the left wing. Freddie Stewart's back in this week. He's on the right wing. And Bryce Hegarty continues the run at fullback. Montoya's back on the bench. Van Fleet drops to the bench. Van Staden is still there on the bench. Whitcomb and Chesham and so on. So it's a still pretty strong looking Leicester lineup, but a bit of rotation, I would imagine, to give some guys a rest who have been kind of playing a lot of rugby in recent weeks. For Connacht, as I mentioned, they were missing some guys last week. They are still missing some this week, but Finlay Beelam's return on the tight head is certainly going to be a welcome one because, as I said, they were under the pump a little bit at scrum time. Heffernan also gets a start. Matt Burke is still there. Delane is back into the side. He is in the second row alongside Noel Murray. Prendergast, Oliver and Jared Butler are the remaining forwards, so kind of steady as she goes. Marmion gets a crack this week ahead of Blade. They swap spots. Blade's down right in the pine. Jack Carty is still there at 10, and he absolutely ran the show last week, so he has been in phenomenal form. It's a pity we don't get to see him up against George Ford, because George Ford has likewise been in fantastic form this season, so that's just a little mini disappointment in that, but I mean, you can't be disappointed when you see Bundy Aki is back in. He's at 12, so Arnold switches to 13. Porch and Wooten swap wings, and O'Halloran is there at fullback. It's obviously pity to not have Mac Hansen, but he was one of the guys who was kind of a late scratch last week as well. Della Hunt drops to the bench. Fitzgerald is still there. Fafita is there. Abraham Papali'i is there. So, yeah, man, there's a bunch of talent on display from both sides. Pretty strong-looking sides overall, but as I mentioned, kind of without some of the guys you're kind of accustomed to seeing, but that's pretty much the same every week. I mean, statistically, last week, Connacht controlled the game territorially. They had 66% territory when the possession was kind of 50-50, so they did really well, but Leicester are a team that also likes to control territory. They had 58 kicks from hand last week, which was a bonkers number, because most teams are around 20s or 30s, but to be in the almost 60, that game was kind of really just something else. The penalty count, though, for Connacht, as I mentioned, scrum time was part of it. It was too high. It was 14 penalties conceded, which is a few too many, so they'll be looking to reduce that down, especially because Leicester, if they got the kicking boots on, they have done mostly with George Ford, but if Freddie Burns has got his kicking boots on, they will certainly punish you with that. And also, Leicester won a bunch of turnovers last week in their game against Bordeaux, and it's an area where Connacht was a little bit susceptible against Stade Francais as well. I think they conceded about 9 overall. You know, Stade Francais were able to win 9. So if that similar thing happens, I feel like Leicester at home is going to be able to punish Connacht more so than Stade Francais was able to do away last week. Because remember, Stade Francais didn't end up scoring any tries. So yeah, Connacht is always a fun team to watch. Leicester, hard team to break down. So it's going to be an interesting kind of battle of styles between these two sides. Leicester, obviously at home and leading the Premiership, are hot favourites, but not by a stupid amount. The Rugby Forecast algorithm says by 7, and the bookmakers over here in New Zealand say by 9. So I think it's like a 1 p.m. kickoff local time, which makes it about 2 a.m. over here in New Zealand. So I will, in all likelihood, watch this one delayed when I get up and have my breakfast. It's a pretty good way to start my day. 2 a.m. is kind of that awkward time where it's a bit too late for me to stay up because I'm looking after 2 little kids, and it's a bit too early to start my day at 2 o'clock in the morning. So yes, we'll do this one delayed, which is a bit of a cop-out, but there you go. You guys let me know your thoughts. Do you reckon Leicester at home are just going to be too good? We might have said the same with Exeter away in their game against Glasgow for the Saturday games. But we did see kind of one upset, if you can call it an upset, for Glasgow winning at home, but one of those games that didn't go according to the predictions. Can you see Connacht do anything? They're a fun team to watch, but can they beat thus far an undefeated Leicester Tigers team in the 2021-2022 season? It's going to be a tough ask. But anyway, you guys have any thoughts? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.